Welcome to PyOhio 2023. I'm Rose Hooper, and I'd like to talk to you about Glacial Refactoring, a Glacier-inspired approach to code cleanup. Why glaciers? Well, because the Glacial Refactoring is a gradual process and composed of several distinct stages. And we can draw parallels between those stages and the code features and glacial features. Glacial refactoring stages are composed of the codescape accumulation, which is the first part where we are now, the refactoring phase, which is the second part, which is what we are aiming to start, and then once we've established a cleaner code base, the evolutionary codescaping. All software has a shape, and I like to call this a codescape. Some code is easy to follow, and some is rugged and complex, just like nature. As the codescape accumulates, we start with the beautiful things. The initial concept and the startup or project is formed. The prototype is built, and people start adopting it. Features are added, and capabilities are changed. New developers, more contributors, more ideas, and more capabilities. Plugins, microservices, and third-party APIs. The ever-evolving ecosystem around us is influencing the shape of the codescape. Bigger, better, and faster. New hardware, new frameworks, new languages, new tools. New everything. Everything's amazing. But wait. The promised land of bug-free, performant, easy-to-modify unit-tested code doesn't exist. The unit tests are fragile. Some integration tests don't run. And there are magic sprinkled in the code and deployment toolchain. Even cosmic rays are causing problems. Software projects have an ever-evolving codescape. Gradually, the accumulation of cruft and code features encroaches. With well-intentioned refactorings and aborted features, team churn, rushed code, and magic dev environments. Misunderstood code and friendly and hard forks, broken dependencies, backwards compatibility and bugs and ownership changes and outsourcing. Business priorities and community pressure, cloudification and unsupported end-of-life versions of things, like Ubuntu 12 and Python 2.7, Red Hat 5, and CentOS 5. Oh, and Python 3.4. Database cruft builds up, and there's relics scattered around. We have unmaintained dependencies and performance fixes. And then we have scope creep, deadlines, break fix, community issues, and disagreements. My head hurts. Fortunately, all is not terrible, because glacial refactoring can help us. Remember, it's a gradual process intended to take time, with frequent small changes with minimal scope, and safe, easy to roll back changes, and self-documenting next steps. And it's easy to incorporate into any release lifecycle. The beginning here of the second phase, which is our first refactoring phase, we'll get to act like glacial detectives, looking for clues in the structure of our code, a lot like landscapes. Our goal? To gradually flatten and streamline the code, smoothing out those rugged code mountains we encounter. We have to identify our terrain, and the first step in glacial refactoring is understanding it. We'll look for and identify features in our codescape that have emerged over time. When we draw parallels to glacial advances and glacial features, we can see that there are some codescape features that emerge, like feature moraines, which are the accumulated layers of code, diverse and large, and each layer a testament to our evolving project. And code erratics, like the big boulders that are left behind. These are isolated pieces of code and remnants of past needs adrift in our current codescape. We have workaround eskers. These are trails of quick fixes and shortcuts weaving through the code, often born from urgent needs. And deadline scars, gashes left behind during rushed development and hasty patches, unpolished code, and the product of tight timelines. And then we find data kettles. These are pockets of data, scattered and disconnected, leftovers of the flow of information over time. And code mountains. Well, these are deeply nested, complex code structures resembling the rugged terrain carved by glaciers or looking like mountains. Let's have a look at some of these features. Well, if we look at feature moraines in code, we can actually see how these do resemble the moraine features from. Okay, so we have hints of legacy data and importing of that data with the import initial core analysis and legacy data cleanup. We also find system architecture clues like a separate data science database. This knowledge helps guide our refactoring strategy. Oh, and adding a core analysis with an external API. An important part of Glacial refactoring is adding Glacial notes. These are comments that document our observations and action items and help both our understanding and that of future developers. Here we have a couple of examples, one using a structured note format called a glacial note, and then we have a dunder approach where we add an attribute to a class. In this case, we have an action item, flatten, where we want to pull the base class into the that class because it's the only usage of it. And here we also, a bit further down in the code, note that we have some things to look into, like this import initial core analysis looks to be unused and there's no refs in the current code. Our investigation action here is to look at the Git history to figure out where it came from and if it is truly gone. And then we have another one, a note that we added, and that was for that core API. And does it just use USGS? Then we go and look at some code mountains. What do these look like? Well, they're deeply nested code formations, and unfortunately, they're one of the most intimidating naturally occurring code formations to work with. These are usually full of code moraines and code erratics. The distinct shape of a code mountain is easy to spot. The left margin is shaped like the peaks and valleys of a mountain range. To flatten a code mountain, well, let's start by adding some glacial notes documenting the findings before we make any changes. Here we've made a note that this appears to have been a closed issue from 2022 and that the feature flag from 2009 is no longer used. And the reason is that there is a release that fixed the issue in the presentation UI. We also note after a large block of code with an else that's looking like a valley that this is a good spot to flatten or extract functions. And we also make some notes on some of these if-else's about, well, maybe we actually want to put the validation first. Now, before we continue, remember we want to make small incremental changes, and this is where we want to commit our code. We want that history. Then we want to haul away those code erratics. Now that we have our intent committed, we can make fixes one at a time. And here's an example of hauling away a code erratic. Zap. Now when we removed it, we made a note here that continue. It appears to be unnecessary. Next up, we have our heavy-duty excavation tool, flipping of if-else's. This is a very powerful way to evaluate and understand and flatten code. This kind of an if-else that we have in front of us is where the main code path is second and that the exception handling is first. So if we negate the if and move the code from after the else to before it, we now have the main code path first. This is a cleaner structure, and it lets us flip off the else. Here we can tell the else to take a hike and use a continue statement to avoid having to deal with the secondary use cases. Evolutionary codescaping. Well, that's the glacial retreat. And it's envisioned as an integral part of future software development life cycles. The opportunity here is using glacial notes for continuous improvement and integrating our refactoring process seamlessly into our software development lifecycle. with the maintenance of the glacial refactoring principles and tooling to help us understand the code behavior and usage, and building tools like parallel code paths for risk mitigation. The journey for glacial refactoring is just beginning, and assistance is welcome. Join me in shaping this methodology by refining terminology and creating guidelines, writing examples, and helping align the principles with existing practices and terminology. One of the important parts of this project is to promote adoption of a positive perspective on all kinds of past code. And we want to build tools like helper libraries and reporting tools, integration into various CI/CD systems, linting tools, etc. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of glacial refactoring, and here's a bunch of ways to reach out to me.